Hey, Gabby,
Hey,
how's it going?
really good.
Awesome, awesome. We're really good to have you. Really great to have you on. So, quick intro. Obviously, we have Gabby, the founder of YGG. So, Gabby, if you want to just give a brief intro, kind of to your background, we'll jump right in from there.
Sure. My name is Gabby, and I live in the Philippines. I've been in the game industry since 2003, so almost 19 years now. As part of the team that made the first game to come out of the Philippines then. Started a game studio called Altitude Games 7 years ago. So we were making mobile games. In 2017, found Ethereum and smart contracts, and then found NFTs via CryptoKitties and really gone deep into NFTs from there. So I've been kind of been involved in the crypto NFT space since 2018, and like made our own game. I met Jiho in the conference circuit. He invited me. I invited him to go to the Philippines in 2018 to talk about Axie, and there were less than 500 players then. And he gifted me three Mio 2 Axies. So that's how I got into the community. And yeah, I've just been playing Axie since then. And it was around August of 2020 where I was playing Axie pretty much like 3 to 4 hours a day at that point when a lot of people started streaming in the server because they were looking to make money during the early part of the COVID lockdown. And yeah, that's a lot of people are from the Philippines, and that's the same time that the scholarship program started happening in a big way, and that's how YGG happened. We decided to scale the kind of scholarship program that people like Chief and AK were starting. Got some investment from Delphi Digital and other investors, and yeah, just really grew it from there.
Yeah, that was an interesting point. I didn't actually have initially on there, but was that really the genesis? Was the scholarship program of Axie that led into everything?
Yeah, so there's two things. One is that introducing SLP in the battle system. So what people don't know was that SLP was introduced for a way to prevent overbreeding. So what happened with CryptoKitties is that you could pretty much breed anytime you want, and then the result was that there were a lot more cats than people who wanted to buy them or trade them, and SLP was introduced as a way so that you there's like a proof of play. You had to win a game, earn SLP, to have the right to breed it, which would reduce the breeding, right? So that's the reason that SLP started, and then people started using Uniswap, learning to swap SLP for ETH to fiat, and that's what really led to the growth of Play to Earn. Combine that with scholarships that happened there and the lockdown where a lot of people lost their jobs. And yeah, Axie grew from maybe 5,000 users in August, September 2020 to January last year at around 15,000. And right now we're like 2.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm trending right near 3 million a lot of the times as well. Um, and so that's really interesting because of how much you've grown since then. I mean, we now have the YGG token. You've invested now in I don't know the number. I want to talk about this, but I think the number is close to 30 plus different
Yeah.
games. So what? Let's start with that. Like, where have you gravitated to? So it seems like you're getting into a lot of seed games and maybe talk about that. And then I also want to know, like, obviously you partner with AK. There's also been a recent partnership, maybe a few months ago, with Loot Squad. What does that look like? Like, how do people join into what YGG is building, and really, what is YGG? Because in my eyes, initially,
Sure.
Loot Squad and everyone else is a competitor to YGG, and it's weird that you have now this kind of synergistic combination.
So, first of all, the way to think about YGG is that we are not one guild. There's probably dozens and dozens of like smaller guilds within YGG. So think of us as more like a federation. There are, I think, 30 managers that handle scholars within YGG. So there are 30 scholarship guilds, and none of those 30 are actually employees of YGG, right? They are community members, people like uh, Cuckoo or Shanks or AK that use our system, use our axes, our technology to serve the scholars that they manage directly. And what YGG does is that we provide the assets, we provide the platform and technology, and kind of that community setting so that the best managers can go out and recruit scholars, train them how to use Axie, earn money, and live a better life without the managers themselves having to have the money to breed their own Axies.
Hmm.
So that's how opted to scale from day one. So YGG itself only takes 10% of the SLP that is generated from by the scholars. Our scholars take 70%, the managers take 20%. And yeah, so that's how we've grown. We ended the year at 10,000 scholars, which is higher than probably anyone else.
Crazy, yeah.
And it's January 13th, and we're at 12,500 right now.
Oh my gosh. Is that now and is that you have your managers, is that all like YGG funded scholars or are those also kind of
Yeah,
investor scholars as well?
yeah. Those are YGG funded scholars.
So how many are under the whole YGG umbrella? Is there another like thousands of them there too?
Well, there are people who are community members that have their own personal scholarships, or there are some of the managers that we work with that have their own scholars that aren't part of YGG, like what AK does, for example. So the actual number is much higher, but the one that we kind of handle directly is 12,500.
And what does that look like exactly? How do you? I mean, I only still have around 70 scholars, and I've had to kind of pause because it's a lot of work if you want to actually help them, guide
It is a
them,
lot of work.
make sure their axes are there, and that's just on 70. How big's your team now, and how do you actually manage now 12,500? I mean, that's insane.
Well, the key to it is really the automation, right? So for any of our scholar managers, they have automated tools in our Discord that handle sending the teams of their scholars, doing the payouts. Like none of that is done manually because if you did that, like it would really drive you crazy. Yeah, we also automate the breeding side where we match what traits what we need to do. I think this week alone we spent over $500,000 in breeding. And yeah, we're burning up a lot of SLP. Like a lot of people are complaining about the price of SLP. We're actually buying and burning it.
Well, and you're probably happy with it. I mean, for 2 cents from where it was at 15 or 20 cents for a long time, it's definitely a lot cheaper to kind of onboard people, and especially if you're, and we can kind of get to the model of YGG because I really want to talk about your gig economy in the future too. Like obviously, to just onboard them into the ecosystem is probably going to be your biggest expense in the entirety of what YGG is trying to build. And so to be able to do that right now for 150, $250 is a much better entry point than 6, 7, $800.
One, yes, it is, but at the same time, like, of course, the we're also sensitive to the price of SLP in that, like, it's probably better for us in the sense that we can breed more axes and then serve more people. It's worse for the scholars themselves in that they're taking home they're taking home less money. But yeah, like I would say, like that's just the nature of play to earn. Like you shouldn't really view it as a job. It's more of like a gig, as he said. It's more like gig economy job, right? And you shouldn't really expect that you would take home like a certain amount of money for the stuff that you do in any game, not just Axie. Like everything is market driven, right? So as more people buy SOP, of course, the price goes up. As the supply goes up, then it goes down, and you have the team at Sky Mavis that is looking to manage the inputs and outputs of this economy. So for the people that are playing the game and get frustrated, just really know that like I would say SLP is just supposed to be your gateway or your entry into the play to earn ecosystem. We always tell people within the YG community like the goal is to turn you from gamers to investors, right? It's not to keep you as scholars forever or treating SLP as if it were wages. We want you to be able to earn enough to graduate from the program and buy your own axes or maybe provide like scholarships for your own family and friends. A lot of people who were scholars now have their own kind of small scholarship teams, or maybe you earn enough money where you buy ETH, you learn to trade a bit, or learn to flip NFTs and then make money for that. So it's just the first step in what should be a kind of a lifelong journey into learning Web3 and later.
There's a lot of things to unpack there. One thing initially that you said about the play to earn, I know that a lot of people are now kind of calling it play and earn because you're playing and you're going to earn something. It may be a a non-fungible token, maybe a fungible token, but it might have a value of a penny, might have a value of $1. Either way, you're earning something, but it's not a fixed amount, or like kind of a stable amount. I guess would also be a good way to view it too. Is that have you found a better term than kind of play and earn versus kind of going from the play to earn?
Um, so for me, I'm not so, I guess, picky on like play to earn versus play and earn. For me, they kind of mean the same thing. It's the same as saying, is it free to play, or are there in-app purchases, or like are people watching through ads? Like play to earn encompasses all of that. And what I've always said is that the best meme wins. And like if you're like a lot of people were saying, oh, NFTs are never going to be big until we can get a better term for it, and then NFT was the best meme, so it won. And I view the same thing with Play to Earn. It's the best meme. It's what people can recognize, and
Mm-hmm.
you can split hairs on what Play to Earn versus Play and Earn is, or what I guess NFT games are. But it's all kind of variations or under the same thing. So I just say Play to Earn because that is the best meme that can like carry the industry forward.
I love it. Best meme wins. So I'm gonna steal that selfishly. So let's talk about Coinbase. You just announced it. What is actually my initial response? How, and then like what does that look like? How did that come to be? And then what does a partnership really entail?
Okay, so the partnership is for Sponsor Scholar Program. And that Scholar Program actually originated within the community. So we did this first with Flying Falcon. You probably know Flying
Mm-hmm.
Falcon is the whale who owns all of those Genesis lands.
Yeah.
And they contributed SLP to us to provide Axie teams to 50 players last year. And it was a way for people who want to give back to the community, for us to be able to provide scholarships to more people around the world. So there are around 50 Flying Falcon scholars in the Philippines, and we give them updates, how these people are doing. One of the Flying Falcon scholars was actually able to build a house for themselves in the Philippines because of the team that Flying Falcon provided for them. And we thought that this is a good idea, and other companies and brands might want to like donate SOP to YGG so that we can actually provide more scholarships. And in return, we will brand, like if you look at the in-game names, there are YGG Flying Falcon scholars. And Coinbase itself is one of those donors for a sponsors scholar program. So yeah, so they'll be providing like direct monetary donations so that we can breed more Axie teams, and yeah, just provide more scholarships to
Wow.
people who need them around the world.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And so I guess just one quick kind of follow up to that. Does that is YGG classified kind of as more as a nonprofit then? Like what is the corporate structure?
So we are a DAO right now. We're actually not a company. Um, I wouldn't say that we're non-profit because we do take 10%, so it's not zero.
Yep.
It's also lower than what a lot of people are taking. But what's really important is that the social good of what we do is baked into the very business model. Like there are a lot of companies that they try to make money first and then they try to do good after, and that is completely fine. But with what we're doing, the social impact of being able to provide these jobs in the metaverse to people around the world, especially those that need them the most in kind of the farthest corners of the world, that is really baked into our business model. And we want to provide economic access to people from the farthest villages of like the Philippines, or whether in Venezuela or anywhere in the world. You want to have equal access to earning opportunity as someone who lives in the US or Europe or like other rich places in the world.
Definitely. Um so okay, so what game how many games are you invested in right now from a YGG perspective?
So I think we're actually over 30 right now. I don't even have the full list, but there's a lot.
That's fine. Which, and now obviously we know you and I are both Axie Maxies. That's how we're connected. Outside of Axie, what is there one or two that you're most excited for? And you might not even already be invested in it because maybe you can't because it hasn't even launched yet, but you've talked to the team or you know the team working on it. Is there another two or three games that you personally or YGG is really excited for in the next, say, 12 months?
Guild of Guardians is something I'm super excited about. I think actually a lot of people in the Axie community are into Guild of Guardians as well. So I've always been a sucker for like action RPG, like played all of the Diablos and all of that. So just having kind of mobile play to earn action RPG just really excites the hell out of me. So we have a lot of guild NFTs within YEG. We have one of the 10 mythic guilds, and we have like at least 50 adventurers guilds, and yeah, a few more NFTs there. So that's something we're really excited about. I think Ember Sword is something we're also really excited about. YG has an entire city in Ember Sword, and we can't wait to see that go live as well. League of Kingdoms is something we've been playing since last year.
Hmm.
So it's a kind of a strategy game similar to Clash of Clans. We have an estate of 286 lands, and we actually made that into our first sub-DAO where people bought into the sub-DAO and receive YGG LOK tokens, which is like equivalent to owning a piece of that land estate. Now that LOK is coming out with its own token, there's more excited building a game, and yeah, these people are getting more and more into it.
Wait, so you're just to unpack that too. You're making a sub. So you made the sub DAO already, where they allocated it in for YGG tokens, and now you're going to make a secondary token for that sub DAO.
No, no. So the sub-DAO itself has a token called YGLOK, but League of Kingdoms, the game itself, it didn't have a token before, and
Hmm.
they're just about to launch their own token. And people who have land in the game or have interacted with their wallets in the game are able to receive some of that token. So yeah, so more people are getting interested. League of Kingdoms is kind of a hybrid free-to-play slash play-to-earn game. So the ones that own lands in League of Kingdoms, including our sub DAO, are going to receive an airdrop of those tokens, I think.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, great. Tell I want to also just dive into YGG Token. Um, it's been out for a while now. I mean, at least for the from the initial kind of Dutch auction that sold out in, I don't know what it was, like 13 or 17 seconds. What's
31.
31? Okay, so maybe I thought it was faster than that. It felt like it was faster than that because I tried to buy some. Um, what does what's kind of the future for YG token? Because you've talked a lot, at least that I've heard in past conversations around, allocating it back to the community. You really want your scholars to, it's kind of your way that you're going to build something with their support, but you want to be giving it back a large chunk of that to them in kind of a DAO format. So, any other kind of 2022 plans for what's going to happen with the YGG token? And you've done the Sword and Shield, you've done some other kind of unique things along the way too.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of things in the pipeline. As we said in the white paper, 45% of the total supply of the YG token will be available for later initiatives of our community, which means that if you're active in the community, you don't have to buy the token, you'll earn it. And the Sword and Shield is the first iteration of that. We're launching something in the next month or so. Like there's no definite timeline, but we're launching something that will allow people to earn the token doing kind of different jobs within the guild. So, for example, it could be something like you're active as a moderator, you're active in esports, you're active in content creation, you're providing some sort of value to the community, and there'll be ways for you to earn the token. So I won't tease more than that. I mean, there's Z
So,
will kill me.
mini
Um,
leak, yeah.
uh, yeah, but yeah, like one of the things we're really focused on is that like you should be able to earn ownership of the guild itself, not just by playing games, but by doing things that are valuable to the community as a whole. And there's a lot of different jobs. Like even you see around Axie, right? You're like you could be a scholar, you could be a regular player, you could be in esports, you could be a breeder, content creator, artist, uh, meme maker. There's so many things that people do to provide value to the community. And we want to be able to reward that for people who provide value in different ways within YGG.
That's awesome. I'm really excited to see how that kind of unpacks. And we'll have to keep be updated on that for sure. So let's switch on to kind of the guild focus, guilds and DAOs. As I think it was kind of the most unspoken thing across crypto Twitter or gaming Twitter, whatever you want to call it, our community that everyone talks in, was the boom of guilds. And if you look at the new um, kind of community rules or guidelines that Axie released, they released kind of a new AXS emblem, and that one seemed like it had a ton of guilds, where it was only basically guilds on there, and there's, I don't know, I'm going to say at least 300 on there. What is your what do you have a take on that? I guess from the guild perspective.
Okay, so first of all, I think zooming back, like guilds have been around in games forever, right?
Hmm.
Probably starting with Ultimate Online, of course, games like World of Warcraft, RuneScape. There's always been a way to organize groups in multiplayer games and have fun together with your friends. Um, the concept of a play-to-earn guild actually didn't originate with us. It goes all the way back to gold farming, which was kind of sort of gray, like not really legal in games like WoW or RuneScape, but people were farming their gold and then turning them into money, basically, even though the terms of service didn't permit it. And now that your items are on chain, your currency is on chain, as we've proven with Axie and with other games, now you can have professional guilds that are basically doing this, organizing people and basically like populating the economies of virtual worlds. And I think this is just a natural evolution of like where you're gathering people to play and then kind of earn some value. The crazy thing is that now the money that we earn, the NFTs that we earn, are now worth like significant sums of money, like millions or even tens of millions of dollars. So you're gonna see people like guilds will be as valuable. It's already valuable as like major companies. Like guilds are valued in the billions of dollars, so you're seeing a lot of economic value really accrue to the guilds. And as more and more people value assets online in virtual worlds, people may have, you may be living in a tiny apartment, but like you own a ton of land in Axie, for example. There's actually know quite a few people who do that. Then guilds are going to be a really important way to aggregate that value. And more importantly, like give access to regular players coming in who maybe don't have money, aren't whales, but want to have access to the benefits of play to earn and then earn some value so that they can use that as a start and maybe start earning some NFTs for themselves. That's really what guilds provide. The guild acts as a whale so that we can aggregate people who can earn from that, even though if they can't afford the thing. So we aggregate that value on behalf of our player base.
So how do you think that evolves over the next 2 to 3 years? And we'll talk about SLP and Axie in the future in a little bit, but specifically, like, do you think there's a lot of change that need to be made in kind of game design, or is there pivots in how you think guilds are actually going to react and partner with scholars or players in the future?
Yeah, guilds have already changed the game design of a lot of coming play to earn games, especially the ones that we invest in that wants a multiplayer component. Oh, first of all, not all games need to be like guild compatible, like some games do not. But for those that do, we actually want to talk to them as early as possible. And the games that have a multiplayer component that we invest in, they come to us at a seed stage where they're still designing the game and say, how can I make the game like more compatible towards guilds? And we love that conversation, of course, because like if we enable guild support natively in the game, not only can YGG come in, there's basically maybe 10,000 other guilds that can easily come into your game from a bunch of players and their friends to professional guilds like YGG. So it makes the game economy actually a lot more robust by enabling people to group together and buy assets inside your game.
Awesome. Okay, that's a really unique take on it. I do agree that the native ability for how you can do multiplayer in guilds would be massive for any game that's going to be launching into the space. Is there any one that obviously kind of the hot one around Twitter right now is the Peg Axies that have kind of the built-in scholarship system? Has there any game that you think is coming soon or that you've seen integrate the guild aspect into it really well?
Yeah, actually, Pegaxy is a really good example. We're actually not in Pegaxy yet. We were in Zrun, but Pegaxy like took the best parts of like Zrun gameplay with a scholarship system of Axie that's kind of built into the game, along with the breeding. And yeah, I just think they did a really smart job of it. Uh,
Cool. Um, All right, let's. Oh, actually, one other question on that was on the guilds and DAOs, and you mentioned about kind of getting into the seed rounds. Obviously, there's monetary value being put up by guilds. I think that one of, for me as a spectator, but also having a lot of friends, peers throughout the guild space, and then talking to a lot of founders or getting promotional offers in my DMs. from different games. My concern is that we're running into a position where there's a lot of people that have influence, and then there's a lot of people that have players or guild types. Both of them tend to have a decent amount of at least crypto money they're willing to invest and spend and take risks on, I think, in the space. However, the concern that I have is obviously there's a difference between seed round funding Sky Mavis and seed round funding Axie Infinity and buying all the land, you know, buying 50% before it even hits market are two very different things. So I think that the investment into a Sky Mavis, great. That's a total risk on a team to develop something versus, hey, I'm going to own half the game assets in a market where almost any new NFT doubles in a day before reveal if it's a picture based thing or whatever it is. Especially if there's hype on a play to earn, those seem to really rocket up quite quickly to a 3, 4, 5x valuation. Do you think there's something that needs to change around how games are coming into the space versus just going to the a guild and saying, hey, buy a third of our land plot and we'll sell it at a discount and you're helping us out too, kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah, that's a super good question, and I think from what I've seen, games are starting to be more sensitive to that by giving caps to like how much assets they're selling. So, for example, we're in this game big time that did a guild funding round, and then the guild funding round, everyone was basically bought the same amount of land. Um, Honestly, you wouldn't want to see like one guild have more than maybe 5% of like an entire game's economy. Like it's just not healthy. And in Axie, we're actually way less than 1%. So I'm not sure that like people have actually done the math on this, right? But like 12.5 thousand scholars out of 2.5 million is actually not a lot in the scheme of things.
Right.
Um, and that's the sign of a healthy community where you have a lot of like micro guilds that are coming in. There's probably at least 5,000 small, like really small guilds of like 10 people and under that are playing in Axie. And yeah, I think that's the way it should be. Like, even though we do own a large guild that represents like a large number of players, like there shouldn't be one entity that is controlling the economy of any given game. I think if it's perceived that one guild is kind of controlling the economy, people will just quit and go to another game, and that would be bad for everyone in the game, right?
Yeah, I also do like you mentioned the Ember Sword side too. I remember that a little bit, and I remember that that city was very expensive. And so I would say I kind of like that where you're not buying, 5,000 of the 10,000 cheapest plots. You are saying, okay, I'm going to invest big, but I get this kind of bigger asset, bigger ROI kind of uh, NFT based, I guess, in that game platform. That to me makes a lot of sense. And at the big time, I had heard about the guild rounds, and I knew something like that too, where they were limiting how much you could do or keeping it consistent. We'll see how I don't know how it's going to pan out to like all of the land in big time. If they're going to, if all the guilds are only 10% or how that shakes out to be. But yeah, I think that is a good note there that they are kind of being more sensitive to that too, because there is a lot of other people that they want to take a shot on a new play to earn game, but obviously they may not have that money or they just aren't that big. So, um, really good
Yeah,
feedback there.
another thing to think about and to look at the behavior of guilds is that, like, the reason we get in seed rounds is that we provide a lot of value. We provide input on how a guild system should work in a game. We introduce them to other investors. We, of course, bring in the players when the guild launch. And most importantly, we actually all have almost never sold our assets. Like, we buy the assets for our players to use, and we are not going in, buying on seed, and then selling at public sale, right? So it's important that whoever you let in early in that round is actually using those assets and adding value to your game. And in our case, we're using the assets that we buy to bring more players in the game. So you wouldn't want anyone, whether it's a VC or just a whale or a guild, to come in and buy assets in the seed round and then on like when it's public, just dump them on the users immediately. They're not providing any value there. So if there are people that are kind of early in the seed round, you want people to earn it by really providing that value and helping that game become more successful.
That's a great perspective, and that's something that I don't think is talked about enough because I've said the same thing. It should be almost like a token lockup period. Hey, you can't sell for 2 years, and you kind of want to see that evolve out too, or whatever the period might be, or it has to be utilized by I don't know, 20,000 interactions or whatever, just to show that you've at least attempted, your ROI or playing the game and getting the use case out of it. And I do credit, you just mentioned before, your 19 years in gaming experience. I can imagine that tied to now the several years of guild experience. You're not walking in there without some kind of opinion that's actually going to be able to help them be more successful. So I think those two are really good counters to that point as well, that address kind of some of the benefit of being able to invest in early in a game that you actually believe in. And that's the other part too. You do have to believe in it. They have to sell you on something that usually doesn't exist yet. So there
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
there is risk there
Yeah,
too, for sure.
yeah, definitely risk there. And yeah, a lot of times, I mean, the thing with crypto is that like the prices can go crazy right now, even when a product is not live. And of course, like when a game comes out, that's your ultimate test of like whether the price of any protocol or game will be sustainable or not. But yeah, a lot of the kind of, I would say, anger from the community comes here is that there are insiders that are able to mine early and then sell, basically dump their bags in the public. So you just really have to make sure that like whoever you're getting in early, if you have a game or if you're doing a seed round, is really kind of an investor that can add value to what you're doing.
That's great. Let's tackle the elephant in the room then. So like we're gonna go into Axie, SLP baby. The hottest talking point that's floating around Twitter that everyone hates or loves, depending on your opinion as to if you're growing and building or if you're trying to cash out your ROI from the summer when everyone paid crazy prices for Axies. Um, I guess just I'll give you the initial stage. Like, what are your where are you on this? Because transparently, you've been quiet on the public narrative from what I've seen. You've been kind of more on like, hey, just keep building, supportive of that perspective, which I think a lot of bigger people are. But is there any other kind of personal sentiment you might have towards it?
Okay, so first thing to think about is that my point of view on this is as a game developer. Like I've been a game developer for almost 20 years. I know that the position that the Sky Mavis thing is in. And like I think SLP as a system, like it grew way, way larger than what anyone thought it would be, right? I think everyone can agree on that. And what most people don't realize is that the rise of the price of SLP was actually driven by a lot of speculation in exchanges, which were orders of magnitude greater than the actual activity happening in game. Now, when SLP started and when the play to earn kind of growth started, SLP was well below 1 cent. And of course, as you know, the price of SLP grew, more people came in, and it kind of helped with the growth of Axie last year. And now that it's gone down, there's a lot of angst because people feel like it's kind of less worth their time to be in the game. So, as someone who has created who's games for a living, it's something that I've seen before, and there's a lot of actually really good suggestions on Twitter from a lot of people in the community on how to I would say improve the price of SLP or kind of just stop the kind of the slide. My opinion here is that the best thing that the Sky Navy's thing can do is really focus on new product coming out. That means Origins. And so if I were in their shoes, like, would I spend engineering resources trying to make stopgap measures for SLP, or just make sure that the new version of the game is as good as it can possibly be, which presumably includes new things for SLPs, maybe new ways to earn new tokens. Now, I don't actually have that much insight on like what the gameplay of Origin is like. I probably know as much as like the next person on Twitter, but I've been here before. I've been part of the community since 2018, and I was alluding to on Twitter yesterday. Like there was the same kind of lull, I would say a year and a half ago, maybe, when like the V2 battles wasn't released yet. People were getting impatient with gameplay. Development always takes longer than you think it does. And then people started selling their assets. Some people quit entirely. Axes were under zero point zero 0.01 ETH. A Mystic was below 1 ETH. So there was actually a lot of uh, I would say doubt in the community at the time. And the people who believe in the team, they stayed around. They kind of kept the players busy. They kept making memes. If the ones who had money kept buying assets, and when the new gameplay came out, then all of the growth happened again. And this is actually typical of a product cycle. It's very concerning if you haven't experienced it before. But anyone who's been in crypto for more than a couple of years knows that there are good times, there are bad times, and like how well you do in the space is really a function of like how long can you stay in the game, right? I got into crypto in late 2017, bought my first ether at like $490. I kept on buying all the way up to 1400, and then in the course of the next year saw that crash to like $95. So yeah, it was pretty much wiped out. And if I quit then I would have nothing to show right now. But
Very true.
stuck around. I didn't have much money. Fortunately, I was there, discovered Axie, and discovered things to do, like more than like trading money, and was able to participate in the land sale. And now that the lands that I have that weren't worth much back then are now worth a significant sum of money. So that's really just how I would say the cycle of these products goes. And just knowing that, being able to step back and being, I would say, having perspective over like the life cycle of a product and how things kind of ebb and flow in crypto and play to earn would give you a lot more perspective on how to play the game.
And that's a really good perspective, and definitely a lot of depth there too, kind of talking about the crypto background and how definitely time humbles you. I mean, I joined around 17 1800 ETH. It went up to like 43 in the middle of the summer, then went back down to 1800. And luckily I bought in at 1800, so I was like, okay, I'm even, and I have some ETH that grew in Axie. But yeah, there's some others that I got in. I was like, ETH is never gonna go below 3 grand. It'll never be back down there. And they bought it like 35, and then it was back down there in 3 weeks. So um, definitely I had my learnings as far as how much I help friends get into stuff. Like definitely cost averaging in is a good method. But let's put software developer Gabby's into Sky Mavis's shoes. What would be your one or two favorite things that you as a player, and I'll say you as a guild manager, love to see like created? Like if you could draw up and put on the pin board, hey, I want these two things: one for player experience, and then one that's like my scholars are going to love to do or want to engage in within the space. Are there two things that you'd like?
Well, definitely as someone who owns the guilds, an explicit guild management system, I think, is something that is needed. And a lot of people talk about this, and I do believe this is coming. Like I would say that the current guild system was kind of accidental because people like AK found a way to lend axes out to other people, like kind of almost like without really asking permission from the system, and it led to the growth. So I'm pretty sure that the guild management system is coming within Axie. So as a player, I mean, I just really love the rise of like different modes of gameplay, right? And and I think one of the things that the Axie team has talked about is a way to play the game without having to spend any money. So where I think it's headed is that like if you're just learning how to play the game, you're playing the game in adventure mode, you're probably using free to play Axies that don't cost any money, but at the same time are probably not giving out anything as well. And that will enable Axie to reach millions of people around the world to try the game. And then when you're ready to earn money in something like competitive, like an arena, then you can buy Axies that are NFTs that produce SLP or other resources that allow you to earn money from it. So that's roughly where I see the world is going.
Okay, so no crazy new thing. Like you don't want like a mega potion that you can, assert the dominant genes you're gonna get, but re-roll the R1s and R2s, or obviously part upgrades Geo's been leaking is gonna come down the pipeline. But is there any kind of like crazy software dev side that if you could create whatever you wanted in the ecosystem, clothes for your Axies or shoes? I've heard some people throw out there too, just like what would be some fun thing that you might want to throw in one day down the Axie pipeline?
Well, actually, I'd like to like the part upgrading that has been promised for so long. Of course, I'd like to see that come out. And honestly, I just want to see utility for eyes and ears.
That's fair. Just use all the body parts is really what we want to get to first, and then we'll explore from there. Yeah, that's a fair point. And I will say, I do love, for anyone, for the folks that are watching right now too, and if you listen to this afterwards, I love that you pointed out the parts upgrade that has been teased for so long. If Gabby's saying it's been so long, it's probably been a lot longer than we're hearing of it. So Gabby's heard about probably part upgrades for a year plus, 2 years. So I appreciate that candidness there too. As I think everyone wants to see their parts upgrade to level 2, 3, and I mean everyone wants to see a level 4 Mystic. I don't know if you can see the stream on, but we have your double Mystic. I grabbed one from your account, so I grabbed your bow tie balloon beast, kind of dueling with my beast. So big fan of that one for sure. Um, I guess like kind of from the macro level too with Axie, is there any, and you've known the team for a long time, and obviously I've learned to know the team now just through my year or so within the Axie space. Do you have any concerns, like if they're either from a software side or just from an investor side? Like if you could throw a concern out there, would there be one, or what, what would it be? Is it just competition, or is there any other kind of thoughts from that side?
Well, what Axie is doing is actually a lot more complex than just the game, right? Like the things that they've alluded to, Mavis Hub as a kind of distribution point for other games. Ronin itself is like it's only being used for Axie now, but it's going to be used for other games later on. Like I think it's underappreciated, even though already people know this for a fact, that like there's this whole ecosystem that Axie will be delivering on, and that's incredibly hard to build, especially when you have a game that's scaling at the same time. Like, of course, you've seen some problems with Axie scaling, with Ronin scaling itself. Like, what most people don't realize, like, you don't know how to fix these scaling problems until you run into these scaling problems. A lot of smaller games like to shit on Axie because, oh, it's slow, it's not scaling. And then when they start scaling, they start running into the same problems that they have to solve themselves. So being able to deliver a game, a distribution method, a blockchain at the same time is actually a very complex and amazing engineering feat. And Chung and his team are really kind of like gigabrains for being able to deliver what they have so far. So yeah, so I actually have a lot of faith in what the Axie team can deliver. Things in software always take longer than you think they will, even if you know that they'll take longer. That's how it is, and of course the community can get impatient about that. But yeah, like we're here, we're still building, we're still adding scholars, and the new gameplay will come when it'll come, and when it comes out, we're ready to support.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, I am so excited for whenever Origins comes out. Not that I don't love the current game mode, but to your point, just to be able to use ears and eyes and however that gameplay will evolve, I'm stoked. And you start to see some of the leaks in animation and different graphics, and just kind of to see that come out, because my belief is that I think the Origins is like the mini leak to what Land graphic is going to be like. And so,
Yeah.
now you have a taste of what, you're going to get with Land whenever that eventually is released, hopefully this year.
There's a reason why the Axies have legs now. It's just like they didn't just wake up one day and think about why don't we add legs to Axies, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's a really good point there too. So let's talk about the future of Play to Earn. Where do you think like games in general go from here? I think one of the interesting, um, I'm gonna call it an experiment. I don't know if you knew about it beforehand, but Thetan Arena is kind of this weird anomaly where they already were a game on mobile. They seemed they had some success, and they were like, "Huh, blockchain seems cool. Let's just redo the game, put a different name on it, and now you slap on these champions as NFTs." I think they messed up a lot of things from economy. Their communication is terrible. I've tried to reach out to them a bunch of times on actual problems, never mind like just to chat about what the future is. Um, and but it's also kind of like this weird test of a lot of other games could probably do something similar to that, and it's not the true kind of on-chain Axie model, but it is giving you ownership over an asset of an NFT, no matter what the model actually is. So, where do you think we evolve, at least in this next year, and where do you think we evolve in the next 2 to 3 years around that?
Yeah, so I would say that there's no one formula that works right now for like what a good play to earn economy is. And it's very encouraging that people are trying out a lot of different things, not just the kind of SLP AXS model. Because that it's in itself is evolving, especially I think when we see land gameplay come out, there's going to be a lot more different tokens that would represent the economy. And Navigachi is also doing this, where there's a lot of different resources that you can earn. Um, but yeah, where play to earn is evolving, I like Phaeton as a game. I think it's a lot of fun. But I do think a true play to earn game has an economy that is really owned by its player base, and having the player base trade with each other, create the value, craft the assets that have value, breed them, sell them to each other. I think that is really what the magic of a play to earn game is. And so having this kind of meta game around how are you crafting heroes, how are you upgrading them, how are you breeding, like arming the players with these jobs that they can do inside the game is really important for any play to earn economy. So I think like that will get more and more built out over time.
Yeah, I totally agree, and especially around Thetan specifically, it does feel very centralized. You can trade them afterwards, but it's almost like a skin you're buying from the creator, and then you can maybe trade it. But they also did that weird,
It's a skin that produces tokens, right?
yeah, and then they did the weird limit
Which
on
is
it
not a
where,
bad thing, but I think
yeah,
it's like Web 2.5 in a sense. Which is again, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a fun game, but for me, the essence of Play to Earn is that you can actually create the things of value inside the game economy, and then be able to trade them with other players without asking for permission from the developers.
so I'll ask you: have you talked to them, like their founding team, at all?
We talk to them from time to time, but
You
in
do, okay.
general, it's really more of like how do we support, like I think they're coming out with a rental system for the heroes later on,
Yep.
which so we're just sitting on a bunch of heroes that are basically waiting for a
Well, that's
scholarship system.
actually, you definitely talked to them because you have a whole YGG hero. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
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 it's
we
okay.
do.
Yeah,
I
you
have one.
definitely talked
I
because
actually I bought one retail for a lot of money.
yeah, because that's right, that's right. I actually forgot about that. But that to me felt like a game where they saw a potential opportunity. They didn't really consult anybody. They just were like, all right, maybe they consulted like how do we do the initial sale of a chest and on chain and this stuff, but after that they're kind of like, yeah, we didn't think about anything else. We didn't think about overminting of a token. They're doing all these buybacks for tokens, which I they're reacting, but they kind of, you can see how a team I think just is just reacting to everything that's happening versus, hey, we have a long plan. We're gonna do this, and there's gonna be ups and downs, and we'll get to the finish line when we get there. They're just kind of like reacting every week or 2 weeks. That's my feeling though. But I agree, the game can be really fun. It's just it's also frustrating from the play to earn aspect because it's kind of not.
Yeah, but we're gonna see this with a lot of other games where there's still going to be a lot of experimentation on what it means to be a play-to-earn game. So that in itself is not a bad thing. I mean, first of all, the game has to be fun, of course, right? And I think Titan definitely has that. And then from there, how do you evolve the economy? Like even with Axie, it took them 2.5 years before the game really took off. So if you have a fun game, I think you can afford to make mistakes with the economy and then kind of just evolve that as you go along. Even in League of Kingdoms, a lot of people were playing League of Kingdoms, even though it didn't have a lot of monetization. It
Good
was
point.
still a fun game. And if you have a fun game, you can make your mistakes, you can iterate on what works. And then if you hit that inflection point, as you did with SLP, then you can take your community there with you, and everyone benefits.
That's a really good point. And around that though, with the scholar ecosystem, obviously in Axie right now, there's a significant amount of scholars or players are playing a paid play to earn game with play to earn assets that don't own the assets. Do you think there's a kind of a, not a threshold, but an ideal situation where they maybe shouldn't? It's hard to run an economy when it's 85%, because obviously when there's a bunch of free to play players, it's gonna change because you could have a free to play player just go buy 10 SLP and get a skin, and they don't own an Axie. They just put it on their free to play Axie. There's a lot of ways you can evolve a game that way. Is that something that you've thought about, like where there's a kind of a nice striking point on that?
Um, so there's definitely going like I think the future is going to be like a hybrid of free to play and play to earn. It just really makes sense where the free to play is your access point where anyone can play the game and learn the mechanics. and when they are ready to earn, that's when they start buying NFTs, doing crafting, breeding, whatever. Um, that said, that is kind of a really broad point of view, and how it'll be implemented game to game, I think is still going to vary a lot.
Yeah.
Like in terms of the game industry, and I think we're similar to early like 2010 or 11, where maybe Clash of Clans just came out, the first Candy Crush just came out, but it's not like now where there's maybe only 4 to 5 real genres that people are playing in free to play. So we're still very, very early in terms of the experimentation, and I expect this different game modes to come out that will work apart from what Axie is doing.
Yeah, that's really good perspective. All right, I got a couple fun, well, one kind of serious, then a couple fun questions from the community that happened to throw in chat that I caught. One was, is it someone who has about 100 scholars now? They said they have potentially about $100,000 to deploy. Obviously, you just put $500,000 into breeding and scholars. He said, where do you think where do you think you deploy it? Would you buy some land? Would you go get floor axes and add more scholars? Would you do some more staking of AXS and Ron? It sounds like maybe they're not doing all those things. So I told him I'd ask it. I know, obviously, not financial advice, but
Yeah, that is super good question. If I were a scholar manager specifically, I'd probably buy some virgin axes with really good genes, and then use that for breeding stock, and then use the rest to buy SLP, and then just breed the hell out of those really good axes. I think it's a real competitive advantage to have like a scholarship program with just really good axes, right? Not just those like throwaway mutated axes that you would provide like random people. So even the really small scholarships, like scholarships that have maybe just 10 or 20 people, but they have really good axes, they're able to provide their scholars with 40 or even 60 energy, and then they're achieving really high MMR. I think that's a really good model. And of course, you can't give that to everyone, but if you're able to identify like who are the like top scholars in your system and provide them a path to have more energy, better axes, become competitive, like earn AXS or maybe just earn money in tournaments, I think that's a great path to go. If you're focused on the financial side, definitely either like getting into farm run or staking on AXS. Like the APR has gone down a bit, but it's still actually 88%, which is still very high if you ask me. So, you all only have to take a look at what your bank is giving you to realize that 88% is still a lot of money.
that's true. And I think if you restake, it's somewhere closer to like 180 or 200. Like if you
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
restaked every day on time.
Yeah, APR actually it assumes that you're not compounding your
Right.
yeah,
So awesome.
your
Cool.
rewards.
The other two questions that were fun, and if you guys have any last one, we might have time for one more. I got two quick ones though. Who in back in the day, or you can say, I'm gonna say present day. You probably haven't played them in a minute. Who's better at Axie, you, Jiho, or Psych Out?
Uh I think that's a really good question. I think
I feel like I'm gonna
Geo's
get an
beaten
honest
me more
answer here
times.
too. This is
No,
good.
no,
I thought she was gonna be like, oh, me,
uh,
obviously.
no, because I remember the times where Geo's playing with Durandal. That was actually what came up in my head. And no, Geo's beaten me more times than I've beaten him. But there were times when like my son is playing using my account, and he's like, "Oh, I beat Geo."
Okay. So maybe we need to throw him into the mix. So you got a future Indes on your hands that can start running up the arena. That's awesome. And then another person asked, actually at the beginning when you were talking about how you were addicted to Axie back in 2020, does Gabby still do his dailies?
I actually don't do my dailies anymore, and the reason for that is that I do something like 40 to 50 meetings every week.
Yeah.
And think about it, I still play Axie, but I'm playing the meta game. I'm playing the meta game of providing scholarships, buying land, like recruiting more managers. So there's many different ways to play Axie, right? You can play the dailies, you can go on adventure, you can be a breeder, you can be a top tournament player, you can be a scholarship manager. And the game I'm playing is the guild management sim.
Yeah. Yeah.
and, and the guild management sim is really funny in that like one day, like like there's a week where we were buying like $1 million worth of Star Atlas spaceships. The next week we were buying like asteroids in Influence, for example. And then the next week we're talking to the Philippine government to help explain what SLT is. And then the next week we're kind of recruiting the best esports players in the world. And then the next week we're like signing the best KOLs, cosplayers in the Philippines. It's actually a really fun game to play, guild management.
That's awesome. Well, I know you have to run, but I actually just wanted to share out a sentiment too, and just ask and see if there's anything else you can take from my community or that we can help you with. But how is it over there? Obviously, Odette happened about a month ago now. Like it was obviously all over Twitter and Axie for a couple weeks, but it's kind of been quiet. Like, do you guys still need support? Do you still need help? How can we help still? And just how is everyone doing? I still see Cuckoo still having internet issues. So if he's having internet issues, I
Yeah,
can't imagine how all the 12,000 scholars are doing right now. But
yeah.
how is it in the Philippines?
So Typhoon Odette hit the middle part of the Philippines, Visayas mainly, and Mindanao, where Kuku is based, really hard. And I think it's going to be probably like year-long rebuilding for because most of these people in these areas they basically lost their homes, like everything was demolished. Um, and fortunately, with the help of the community, we've been able to raise over $1.5 million. We've channeled this to the community, both in the form of just the aid organizations in the ground, like World Food, UN's World Food Program, or World Vision Philippines. We've worked with both the Philippine Army and Navy to buy supplies and then send them over by boat
Wow.
to the areas that need support. And we've also done direct cash assistance where we've sent out $200 or 10,000 pesos to around 2,500 people now. And that's actually not an easy feat because you have to take the crypto, sell it into fiat, which is hard to do in large amounts. And then we're identifying the scholars. There are people on the ground who are identifying if these are like real people, not duplicating their
Right.
names, having their name match with their like Gcash wallet or their bank account. So there's a lot of logistics that is, I would say, uh, that entails just giving this direct cash assistance. That said, because of the generosity like of the Axie community, the greater NFT community, other games that have donated, we actually like were able to raise a lot of money, $1.5 million, and we still have maybe a little under half of that we're deploying. So we're continuing to do the direct cash assistance of $200 per person that applies. We're still talking to some of the aid groups. And now that Kuku has a somewhat better situation, we're gonna send some of the funds through him and his church group so that he can directly help community members in the Cebu area where he's based.
That's awesome. So it sounds like we're kind of out of the thick of it, where it's the worst, and you've kind of now are accounting and trying to rebuild and grow from there. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, we'll just continue to do this until we basically run out of the money that the community has provided.
Good man. Well, hey, I mean, obviously, what YGG does, I think, in the space is incredible, and just what you guys were able to help raise in the community was nothing short of like kind of a miracle feat. And so, really appreciate all the hard work you're putting in there. Obviously, it's your home country, and where it hits you a lot closer to home than maybe everyone else. But seriously, what you've done in that area, it doesn't go unnoticed by us even in the U.S. And I just want to say, best of luck to everything over there, and I really appreciate you coming on, spending the time with us, and best of luck with everything going forward in 2022.
Thank you. And same, I think we're kind of part of the whole same kind of extended family in Play2Earn in Axie. And yeah, we just want to see you guys more, even if it's in the arena or just in Discord, or just in Twitter. Yeah, just would love to hang out more.
Well, we'll see you in Origin for sure, and we'll have to get that Jiho Psych Out Gabby and Gabby's son tournament going. Maybe we can raise some more
For
money
sure.
that way.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabby.
Mhm.
Have a good one. Cheers.
All right. Bye.
Bye.